Okay, very good. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. I know we have a few people in person and some virtual as well. My name is Ivailo Grigorov. I'm a financial advisor, Northwestern Mutual. A huge part of what I do is helping families like ours with special needs. Today's topic is going to be creating financial security for a loved one with special needs. So I'm going to walk through a presentation. We could leave a few minutes for questions. Thank you, Michelle, for inviting me. Last year I had the opportunity to come in person, and this year we're doing it virtual. I will leave my contact information at the end as well. If anyone has further questions, feel free to reach out to me that way as well. A little bit about my family and why I do special needs planning. This is Luca at the very front and center is really the inspiration behind special needs planning. He's going to be 9 here in November, so almost 9 years old. We had a normal pregnancy, everything was fine, and as Luca was born, he was very low tone, failure to thrive, wasn't feeding correctly, so we spent about 3 weeks in the hospital. They ran a lot of tests, and the genetic testing that came in was Prader-Willi syndrome, which to get very technical, it's a deletion on chromosome 15. One of the first things that we did is, and they tell you not to Google it, but you naturally Google it, because I'm like, what is Prader-Willi syndrome? I'm not in the medical field. And there's a lot of doom and gloom and negativity and all the things that you see online, and definitely very scary for our family. Needless to say, Luca's doing extremely well today, thriving. And we like to describe him more than a diagnosis. So I talk about some of the things he likes to do, which is we do hippotherapy. He loves horses. He loves animals in general. He loves swimming, coloring, playing outside with friends. He always has a huge smile and lights up a room everywhere he goes. The Alex that's on the left side of the screen, 14 in the 8th grade, typically developing. We play a lot of soccer. We travel all throughout the Midwest with him. He plays competitive soccer. And then my wife, Kenna, happens to be an occupational therapist by trade. We did not plan this. She was working in a rehab hospital, so more with kind of older generation and then stroke victims, things of that nature. But her training and expertise has definitely been super helpful for our family over the years with Luca, his development. I have a degree in finance, and I also have a designation in special needs planning. As I mentioned, most of my clients are other families that have kiddos or adults with special needs. In our free time, I enjoy traveling and then spending time with the kids, whether that be soccer games, movies, whatever we can do there. So that's a little bit about me and my family. We're going to delve into a little bit special needs planning and how it might be a resource. These are just some statistics as we start this presentation. I like to share, and you guys can look at them on the screen. But to summarize, basically, the majority of caregivers are really concerned: do we have enough resources to retire? How can we take care of ourselves, but also our loved one? How much is it going to cost? And most people feel like they have to compromise kind of their retirement in that piece. A lot of families that we come across don't really have a lot of life insurance and have not looked into what does a permanent design look like, second to die policy, how do we leave money behind for a kiddo with special needs. I thought kind of halfway in the middle here, this is an interesting statistic that talks about the lifetime cost for a dependent with autism, which for this group should be applicable. It's between $1.5 to $2.5 million, depending on how severe or what kind of help do we need there. Towards the bottom, and Jason just talked a little bit about the school system and IEPs and how do we advocate for our children. A lot of families we come across don't have a will, don't have a special needs trust, so it's something to really think about, putting those things in place for our loved ones. And then at the very bottom, what we see is that about 23% of families don't have a formal financial plan, and only 37% work with an advisor. So I just wanted to share some of these to kind of get the conversation started. When it comes to your finances, what do you worry about the most? Again, most of you are probably here today just to learn what is it that we can do, and how do we answer some of these questions, whether now or in the future? How much would it cost to take care of our loved one? What does that look like? A couple of things that I always like to share when it comes to planning for a loved one with special needs. It's never too soon to start planning. I always tell families there's no magic formula or age. I have families that have a 2-year-old and are ready to address it, and I have families that have a 15-year-old or a 25-year-old, and they're getting around to it at that point. So don't feel like, again, there's no magic formula. The sooner you start, the better you'll feel. The second bullet point really addresses that you don't have to do everything at once. I think just the thought, it could be daunting. Gosh, it's a lot of work. Where do we start? What does that look like? So we always talk to families, start with what you know today. Things will change over time. Things will evolve. We'll adjust things down the line. The last piece really is remembering that you're not alone. I think, again, kudos to Michelle and what she's trying to do and build in your town. And there's so many organizations, Facebook groups, community members, and whether through therapy, and so many places that you can get connected with other families that are going through similar situation like you, or maybe they're a few years ahead of your kiddo and can help provide that support, guidance, answer questions. We have learned the hard way that raising a child with special needs can be very isolating. Families don't relate. They don't understand what they're going through. It's very different than typically developing children. So we want to make sure that everyone is finding their tribe and reaching out to people that understand them and can help them throughout the process. In terms of today, here's a couple of things that I'm going to touch on. And I know we're kind of starting late. We'll try to spend 30-40 minutes talking about these and have a few questions, but I'm going to talk about what is a special needs team, who should be really on your side, who you should work with, whether now or in the future. How do we develop a plan? How do we estimate the cost of care? I'm going to talk a little bit about what are special needs trusts, what are ABLE accounts, and then we're going to kind of put it all together. So the first part, in terms of a team, we refer to them as the 3 pillars when it comes to special needs planning. We want you to engage with a financial professional. So that would be someone like myself that can help guide the discussion for you and your loved one and help you streamline what does that look like and how do we allocate proper resources for a loved one with special needs. The second piece is a government benefits specialist. So again, whether now or in the future, depending on how old your child is or adult at this point with autism, a government benefits specialist can help us resolve any care management issues. That can help us figure out what does the cost of care look like. If we're moving states, that can help us with those things. But more importantly, we want to make sure that we're taking advantage of any programs, waivers, benefits that may be available out there. Last but not least, it's a legal professional, so an attorney. Again, someone, I'm giving them kudos, Jason that just spoke, but we want to engage with someone that works in the special needs arena, has been to court, has defended cases, understands how Medicaid works, understands how benefits work, how guardianship works, and can help us make those decisions when it's time appropriate and age appropriate for your child. So if you take anything away, the team, we should really have 3 different professionals: financial, government benefits, and a legal professional. The question always comes up. So if you feel like, gosh, I don't really have a team, what does that look like? Again, when we sit down with the client, we discuss who are we missing from this equation, if we need to provide a referral, and then figuring out at what point we need to engage one of these members. So once we have a team established, we look at how do we build a financial plan. Again, when I sit down with the client, we ask a lot of questions. Where are we today? What's income like? What's spending like? What debts are we paying off? And then we look at what do things look like for the future? What do we plan for the next 5-10 years? What does retirement look like? What goals and aspirations do we have? Because we want to make sure that that's accounted for. And then on the right side is we want to make sure that we're incorporating your child. I think sometimes planning is done in silos. We have something individually for mom and dad, and then we have something for the child. So we want to make sure that we're considering your kiddo and what do you envision for them? Where would they live? Would they live with you? Would they require nursing support? Would they live independently? Would we have to purchase something? Would they have a roommate? What kind of activities would they enjoy? What kind of care would they need? So we want to put those two together and try to make a plan. So when we talk about, how do we estimate cost of care? What benefits are available out there? Again, depending on age of your child and how much you've looked into it. These are some of the most common benefits that are available out there. So I just want to share. Social Security has a few different buckets, but there's SSI and SSDI. We're going to get into it here in a little bit, but there's a benefit that your child may qualify, whether today or in the future. Medicaid. So again, a lot of states have waivers, which can help us up to age 18, but then there's full-blown Medicaid after the age of 18. Vocational services. So at some point we may need job coaching, help with interviewing, someone to maybe shadow us, help us have some sort of employment depending on how your child is doing. Public school services, again, the previous presentation touched on this. There's so much provided in the form of therapies and testing and different things. It's just a matter of mom and dad working through IEPs, asking for what's right, customizing it, following up, and making sure that our kiddo is getting all that they're entitled to. So why do we bring all of this up? A lot of these benefits, so when it comes to Medicaid, Social Security, they're what we call means tested. So we want to make sure that our kiddos are qualifying, whether now or in the future, and we're planning accordingly. Again, if you have any questions, or I will run into a lot of families where maybe we applied and were denied, or what that looks like, that's again where the government benefits specialists can help us with paperwork approval, making sure that we're on the right track. So Social Security, I want to address it because it's one of the main questions we get. We want to clarify, how does SSI work? And it's probably the most important benefit out there. So SSI stands for Supplemental Security Income. As you can see, kind of the top piece of the chart here is if a child is under the age of 18, it's the parent's income, assets, and the household size. That is the formula that the Social Security Administration uses to determine eligibility for benefits. Most of you, if you have a 2-year-old, 5-year-old, 7-year-old, even if you have only one working parent, especially if you have two working parents, you go to Social Security Administration because you heard, well, gosh, we might qualify. The first thing a lot of families are told, unfortunately, you guys make too much money, come back later. You don't qualify. So we want to encourage families to think of that as a temporary, or as just a short snippet of time that can always change over time. We want to know the rules and how we might be able to qualify in the future. So the bottom part of the slide kind of talks about once your child turns 18, it's no longer mom and dad's and working parents, but it's the child is considered a legal adult, and it's their assets and income that helps determine if they can qualify. So for most of our kiddos, including my own, it is very unlikely that at age 18, my son would be gainfully employed and earning more than $1,000 a month. So more than likely he would qualify at that point. Why is this important? Again, if you have a 6-year-old, 10, 12, 14, 15-year-old, we want to make sure that we're keeping assets less than the $2,000 threshold limit that the government has established, and we're properly planning so when that time comes, we can qualify for benefits. At the very bottom, this is the first time you're hearing about any of this, I want to share the benefit amount for this year for 2023 for SSI is $914 a month. The way the government views it, that's really meant for rent or housing and meals. That's kind of how they determine that amount. You may argue, well, again, in Minnesota, I don't know if there's a place where for $900 you can, rent or buy and have your meals. So with inflation and everything else, it's probably not sufficient. So then we're going to talk about different tools that we can layer on top of government benefits to help cover things that maybe won't be covered. But just wanted you to be aware, there has been some decent increases. I mean, just 3-4 years ago, the benefit was $770, $812, $870. It has gone up with inflation a little bit, which is encouraging. But that's kind of what your child may qualify for. So I want to introduce another topic. We talked about prior to 18, we may not qualify unless there's a waiver in your state that you might be able to get on. After 18, that changes. So what we're introducing here is when mom and dad retire, or one of them retires, it's what the government calls a bump up. Basically, we can assign our child's benefit to the Social Security benefits the mom and dad would receive, and it could be up to 50% of your benefit without impacting your total as well. So what are we saying? Just to put it into perspective, say if I am 67 tomorrow and I'm retiring and my Social Security benefit is, say, $2,800 a month, what we're saying is that my son would qualify for up to 50% of my benefit. So he would get $1,400 a month, and I will still keep my $2,800. So it's not reducing that benefit. Most families are not aware of that component. I'm going to go back a little bit. In the previous slide, I just told you, well, 914 is the maximum you qualify. But what we're saying here is that when you reach retirement age, that amount can be higher, and it's a combination of SSI and SSDI. Again, when families meet with traditional planner, a lot of times these things are not discussed. We want you to be aware of how can this be impactful? Well, a lot of times we might need to figure out, does it make sense for mom to start drawing Social Security first, or should dad do it? Is there an age difference? Is there a large income difference? So who we attach that benefit may have, long-lasting impact on your child's benefit for the rest of their life. So very important, again, depending on age of your child, and if you're approaching retirement, this is definitely a topic that you might want to be aware of. So to summarize with the benefits, again, up to 18, unless you're on a waiver, usually you'll be the Medicaid piece of it. You may qualify for the medical insurance. Most families would not receive SSI. At 18, we could get SSI, and in mom and dad's retirement age, we would have SSI with SSDI and have that additional couple $100 a month that may be available. So switching gears a little bit in terms of the benefits, then we talk a little bit about how do we possibly estimate the cost of care that our children may need. Again, some of you are probably thinking we're in the same position. Gosh, our little guy is 8, 9. I don't know what things are going to look like when he's 22 or 25, 30. How much equipment would he need? How much travel would be involved? Are we still going to see the same specialists that are out of town and out of state? So those are the things that it's daunting to think about, but there are things that you can consider today. One thing that I always tell families is that there's so much that we do today that, we do it because we're mom and dad. We don't charge our son to take them to therapies and appointments. And just this week, we just came back. Our son had a visit with an orthopedic surgeon in St. Louis. So we drove on Thursday, came back yesterday. If my wife and I are no longer around, or if we're older, and if there's still follow-ups needed, someone is going to charge for their time to take them to these appointments. So those are the kinds of things we want to be thinking of on an annual basis outside of government benefits. What kind of things that do our kids need medically? What kinds of things that they enjoy doing leisurely? And try to figure out what is that amount and how much should we save up to have in the future. We talked at the beginning about government benefits specialists. A lot of times they can help us figure out, depending on where you live, the diagnosis, how severe is your child, what kind of help they're getting today, therapies. They can kind of estimate how much additional resources we would need, and we'll put that together in a plan and give families an idea. Here's what we need to be saving or leaving behind to make sure that your child is enjoying the same lifestyle that they are today. So next, we're going to talk a little bit about, we addressed the Social Security benefits, how that works, the $2,000 limit. Now we're going to talk about things that outside of benefits, how do we pay for? So there are two most common vehicles the family use, and that is a special needs trust and an ABLE account. So we're going to address those a little bit. Hopefully some of you today already have a special needs trust. You've met with an attorney, understand how that process works. But if you don't, we'll just give you a little bit of an overview. There are two kinds of special needs trust. One is what it's called a first party or self-settled trust. It is not as common. It's usually, say, maybe at birth or later on, maybe there was a car accident, what have you, and we had a settlement. So the money went directly to your child. So it's in a first party special needs trust. What most families that we work with establish is a third party special needs trust. It's not little boy or little girl's money. It's mom and dad's, grandma and grandpa, relatives, aunts, uncles. They're the ones that are contributing. So as you were to visit with an attorney, you want to be discussing a special needs trust. When we leave money, when we designate resources into a third-party special needs trust, it shields it from that $2,000 limit and protects it from government benefits. So that is truly the biggest reason why we would do it. We can leave real estate, business interests, life insurance, retirement accounts, whatever the case may be, and our child or adult can still enjoy Medicaid, SSI, all of those components. If we don't do it through the special needs trust, then if the money is directly awarded to them, then it's beyond that $2,000 limit. And if they have benefits, they're going to get kicked off those benefits. They have to spend those assets down. So in a sense, what we're saying here is you want to have a conversation with relatives sometimes that are very well intentioned and want to leave money behind for your child in some shape or fashion to make sure that it's done appropriately through a special needs trust so that you can protect benefits, whether now or in the future. So third-party special needs trust is what you need to be thinking of. A couple of considerations. When we do a special needs trust, you want to make sure, again, we hire an attorney. I understand everyone has a lot of priorities for their funds and we're limited resources, but you want to make sure you hire someone that has done these before, understands what they're doing, and works in that arena. A lot of times this is not, I tell families, I mean, jokingly, but we don't want to go to legalzoom.com and just create something briefly or go to our brother-in-law who does like family law. So we want to make sure that this is done correctly. This document, it's meant to serve us for 20, 30, 40 years down the line. The second bullet point I also wanted to address, we meet a lot of families that feel, gosh, we're aging, our friends and family are aging. We don't know who, I mean, nobody can be a trustee, or we don't trust anyone, or everyone's 3 states away. What do we do? So there are a lot of banks and institutions nowadays and private companies that can administer a trust and be a trustee. It comes with a small fee, but there are a lot of benefits. So they know what they're doing. They will file the tax return for the trust. There's continuation of coverage. They have errors and omissions, liability insurance, so they will make sure that it's done properly. A lot of families also like that because it's kind of checks and balances. We don't have to worry if someone is misappropriating funds. So keep that in mind, that there are solutions in that way if there's no one in your family to fulfill that role. Most families, including our own, we have a special needs trust, choose a family member or really close friend, have had that discussion, and that's kind of where we start. But if you don't have anyone, there's always options. When we talk about special needs trust, a lot of times people, it's kind of this concept of, well, what does that look like? How much, where do we put this money, or how do we do it? Most of our clients, we don't fund a special needs trust till death. So mom and dad are cash flowing, paying for things today. So we would leverage life insurance, we'll leverage other accounts that one day will kick in and provide the income that the child or adult at that point may need. So the last bullet point I wanted to share, when we talked about the first party trust, a lot of times those may have a payback provision, or they go essentially to the government if the worst happens, if there's death. With the third party special needs trust, it would be designated to family members. So again, we don't want to plan for that, but something tragic, devastating happened, and your child/adult passed away, nothing is lost. Those funds will stay with your family, favorite charity, whoever you designated as a beneficiary. So I wanted you to be aware, no issues on that level with the special needs trust. So the next tool that I wanted to touch on is the ABLE accounts, or 529A plans. They're coming up on almost 10 years. These accounts were created by families with children with Down syndrome. Years ago, they were trying to leverage the traditional tools like 529 plans, they went to Congress, said, well, where can we put money for our kids that are not counted as a resource so they can still have their benefits? So that's kind of how they came about. I have a couple of pointers on here to share. As long as the disability has happened before age 26, we can open an ABLE account. We don't want to grow them more than $100,000 if we're receiving SSI or planning to in the future. Otherwise, those accounts have larger capacity that can hold a lot more. So it's not an issue for Medicaid, but for SSI, we want to keep it under 100,000. It works, the easiest way to describe it to clients, it works similar to a Roth account where we're putting in after-tax dollars. It can be invested, it can grow, and we don't have to pay any taxes to pull money out. So it allows you for some tax-free growth. Again, the biggest reason why we would choose an ABLE account for a vehicle to save is what I have on top. We can only have up to $2,000 in our child's name. So if that's a bank account, any stocks, investments, whatever that may look like, the ABLE account allows us to put additional funds aside that do not count for government benefits. A couple of uses. So again, I run into a lot of families, and some of you are thinking, depending on where you are on the spectrum, some kiddos may never go to college. You're like, well, we don't save for college. That's perfectly fine. As I have on the screen here, you can still save for college in the traditional sense of 529 plan, but you can use the ABLE account just for about anything for your child with special needs. So it could be housing, transportation, assistive technology, healthcare, travel, whatever the case may be. We've had an ABLE account, gosh, for the last 4 or 5 years. It's a great tool. Periodically, as I mentioned, our son likes hippotherapy. Well, it's not covered by insurance in our state, so sometimes we just use the ABLE account to pay for it. If I wanted to buy him, I don't know, a new iPad, I can use the ABLE account to purchase it. If we were going to, like I mentioned, to a doctor visit out of town, we can use the ABLE account to pay for some of those expenses. And if we don't, we leave it alone, it grows. It's just a great tool. For those of you that are, maybe your child is mild on the spectrum, you're thinking, well, they'll need some support, but maybe they'll still do college or something. It's still a great way to save money. It just allows you to have that advantage that if you need to apply for benefits, it won't be counted. Most families do not realize this, but if you have a 529 plan, it's a countable asset. So even though, I mean, I run into a lot of families, and I shared on the first slide, I have a 14-year-old as well. He has a 529 plan. He's typically developing. We plan on him going to college. So most families are kind of like, well, we have 2 kids, 3, 4. We opened one account for one of them. So naturally, we did the same for the other 1, 2, 3, whatever the case may be. So there is a way you could essentially roll the money over from a 529 plan to an ABLE account if needed to protect benefits. I have a disclaimer on the bottom. Most states, Minnesota is one of them as well. Again, if something devastating happened, we're receiving Medicaid, we're receiving benefits, there may be a Medicaid payback provision. So just kind of keep that in mind. Most states are appealing it at this point. I know it's kind of going away. Hopefully that would be eliminated in the future, but a great place to save. If you're not aware of them, this is kind of the resource page. Go to ablenrc.org, which is the National Resource Center. You can see the map on the bottom. All the states that are in blue have their own platform. These accounts are ran by the State Department, so we don't even open or manage ABLE accounts. We would help families set them up, but they're very low fees. Generally, you can get, in some cases, a debit card. You can have direct access to transfer funds. So check it out if you're not familiar with it. Great tool. I'm an advocate. We've been using one for a few years. One additional component I wanted to share is that your child can only have one ABLE account. It is tied to their Social Security number. So I run into some families where maybe parents are divorced or were separated, or grandma and grandpa want to start one, or whatever the case may be. You can have multiple people contribute, but you can only have one account that is set up. So keep that in mind. So this is a nice visual. Feel free to take a screenshot if you like, but the question always comes up. I'll do a presentation or I'll visit with the family, and people would ask, well, what's right for us? Should we do an ABLE account? Should we do a special needs trust? And the answer is really depends, but for most families, it's a combination of the two. I reference our family. We have an ABLE account that we've been funding and using for the last 4 or 5 years. We also have a special needs trust. So I will walk through these, and some of this we've already hit on, but I kind of want you to understand the similarities, differences, and some of the nuances of how those tools will work. When it comes to the ABLE account, as long as the disability has occurred before age 26, we can open one. With the special needs trust, there's not an age limit. So how does that apply? I mean, most of you already knew by age 26 that your child has autism, so not an issue. But what we're saying here is if I was in a severe car accident tomorrow and I get disabled, I cannot open an ABLE account. I'm past that age, but I can still have a special needs trust and have it funded somehow. With the ABLE account, as we described, you can go to the ABLE NRC. Very easy. You can open one up in 10, 15 minutes. You don't have to pay any fees. You can manage it, do it yourself. The special needs trust we already covered. We want to make sure we hire an attorney that works in that arena, elder law, special needs trust, that can help us draft that. In most cases, depending on where you live, but we're talking $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, depending on if we're doing a full estate plan, will, guardianship, special needs trust, it will vary, but definitely something we want to administer. It will save you time, headaches, and money in the future, not having to go to probate or lose benefits. From a contribution limit, big distinction there. The ABLE accounts is tied to gifting guidelines, so you can only do $17,000 per calendar year. So January 1st to December 31st. With the special needs trust, there are no limits. If I have $2 million, I want to put them in a special needs trust, I can. I've alluded to it earlier. If I have life insurance, if I have rental units, if I have retirement accounts, investment accounts, I can assign them to the special needs trust. So huge distinction here. The ABLE account, $17,000 annually, cash basically only. Special needs trust, no limits. It could be other tools. I already touched on with the ABLE account, we want to keep it below 100,000 for SSI purposes. In terms of taxes and what have you, we mentioned with the ABLE accounts, it's tax-free distribution, so it's a great tool. Once we have an active special needs trust, it gets complicated. We have gains, it has its own EIN number, money is invested, so someone has to file a tax return. So just keep that in mind. In terms of the ABLE accounts, there's Medicaid payback provision. With the special needs trust, goes to family members. And then the last piece, again, depending on your situation, with the ABLE account, you can have a debit card, you can have direct access. If you're trying to teach financial independence, that may be a great tool. You give your child a debit card that they could purchase certain things and teach them how to use money. In other cases, that we cannot do that because people would take advantage. So we like to have a trustee that would write checks, approve things, depending on what your child may need. So that is the kind of in 60 seconds, the ABLE versus special needs trust, similarities, and then differences with those two tools. The last piece I would share with these two is how I view them is think of as the ABLE account is more of a checking account, short-term savings. It's liquid. We can save. We can take some tax advantages. We can tap into it. When it comes to the special needs trust, that's our long-term savings account. We can put more substantial assets funded over time, and then we use those two in conjunction. So we talked a lot about how do we plan for our loved one with special needs, and that's why you're here today. How to set money aside, government benefits, how to protect those, what do we apply for, how do we estimate cost of care. This screen is really just a reminder that don't forget to plan for yourself as well. An analogy we use is when you board an airplane, one of the first things they tell you is in case of an emergency, make sure to secure your own mask before assisting others. Same concept applies here, is making sure that you're taking care of yourself, your finances, everything else, so that you could be the best help for your loved one with special needs. Why do we bring that up? it's important, again, to consider, what do you envision for yourself, retirement goals, what are we trying to accomplish, set priorities. We build plans for families, and we adjust them as time goes on, at least on an annual basis, and then we weave the special needs component as part of that as well. But keep that in mind. I know most of you, we get overwhelmed as well. Some days it's Lucas driving our daily activities and his therapies, and he kind of runs the schedule. Everything else comes second, if you would, but you want to make sure that you're thinking long-term and planning accordingly. Just a couple pointers for you. Make sure work with someone you trust. Make sure that they have experience in special needs planning. I shared a couple concepts, but a few main things that we see is, a lot of times when we work with planners that don't work in this arena, even though we've done great planning for traditional families, when it comes to benefits, able accounts, 529 plans, some of the advice that families are getting contradicts actual benefits, and families are having to course correct down the line. So we want to make sure that we're maximizing all of that. And then the last piece is both for legal and financial, but making sure that things are being updated over time. You're working with companies and firms that are going to be there and do the right thing, because some of these documents are meant to serve us decades from now. So we want to make sure it's done appropriately. So to recap, if you joined late, I think we're approaching the 3 o'clock mark, but I started talking about, think of special needs planning as a team. It is nearly impossible for one person to be an expert on all these topics. So we talked about involving a financial professional, government benefits specialist, and an attorney. We talked about the role each person plays, how they work with each other, and some of the different components that they will help you throughout the lifetime. Then we talked a little bit about developing a special needs plan, why it's important to understand your current situation, but also future needs and aspirations. How much do we need to be saving? How do we estimate cost of care for our loved one? And then how do we fund it outside of government benefits that we may be eligible for? So again, the two main vehicles, if you take anything else from today, is that the government only allows up to $2,000. That's the limit. It's a means tested benefit for our child in their name. So anything beyond that, we want to be using able accounts and special needs trust. I shared that chart. Again, it's a nice visual of how to think of it, how to use it. One tool is not necessarily better than the other, but it depends on the family. If you need one or the other, or in a lot of cases, both. And then the last piece is, again, even though you're here to learn about your kiddo and what can we do and how do we set them up for the future, you want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself as well. That is all I had for today. Thank you for your time. We're almost 3 o'clock. I'm going to put my information on the screen, and then Michelle has my contact info as well. If you'd like to send me an email or give me a call, we'd love to visit with you personally, answer any questions for your family. Michelle, I don't know if kind of how big of an audience you have, or if there's any questions that we can hit up before everybody gets off. And I know we're the last presentation of the day. You guys have had 2 days, but wanted to share some of this info. Michelle, are you there? I don't know if there were any questions. I know we're up on the 3 o'clock time frame. Just let me know. Well, thank you all for joining, those of you that were virtually, and thank you those that attended in person. Yeah, let me know if I can be a resource in any way, or if you have any questions.
Hello.
Hi there.
Oh, hi. Michelle just stepped out of the room. I was just one of the participants listening to your presentation. Thank you very much. My name is Elizabeth.
Very nice. Good to meet you.
Good to meet you too. Very, very useful information. I will be getting in touch with you, I'm sure.
Very good. Well, good to meet you. This is meant to be a general overview because a lot of times you never know. I have families that, like I mentioned, have a 2-year-old, 10-year-old, 30-year-old. Everybody has different questions and there are different stages. And I understand that. So yeah, just let me know if you'd like to connect further.
Thank you so much.
Of course.